You ever watch somebody turn a 10-second walk into a $3,000 mistake and still act like you're the unreasonable one? Because I did. And I'm telling you right now, if somebody had told me this story over a beer a year earlier, I probably would have laughed and said, yeah, okay, sure, but no, this really happened. Back in 2020, I bought a small townhouse in a quiet suburban complex outside a mid-sized city. Nothing fancy, just one of those long rows of attached homes where everybody shares the same alley out back, and the dumpsters sit maybe 30 feet behind the buildings like they've always been there minding their own business. The reason I picked my place was simple corner unit, tiny patch of grass, little fence around it, just enough to feel like I had one piece of the world that was mine. At the time, I was active duty Army, so I wasn't home all the time. But when I was home, I liked things steady. Clean yard, quiet evenings, no nonsense. I'm the kind of guy who notices a loose hinge before it becomes a broken door, who trims the grass before it looks wild, who sleeps better when things are where they're supposed to be. For the first year, that place was exactly what I needed. Peaceful, predictable, simple. Then a woman moved in 2 doors down. I'll call her Lena. Lena was a single mom with 2 kids, always moving fast, always half on the phone, half chasing a backpack, half yelling toward the inside of her house. Yeah, I know that's 3 halves, but that's what she felt like she lived every day late for something. At first, we barely spoke, just the usual neighbor stuff. Small wave in the alley, quick morning nod. Nothing ugly, nothing personal. Then one afternoon, I found a greasy takeout bag sitting inside my fence near the grass. I picked it up, looked at it, figured maybe the wind had kicked it over, tossed it in the dumpster and forgot about it. 2 days later, another one showed up. Different bag, same spot. I still gave it the benefit of the doubt. Wind raccoon, random bad luck, who knows? Life's full of little dumb things. Then came the third one. I was in my kitchen, making coffee, just staring out the back window the way people do when they're not fully awake yet, and I saw Lena step out her back door holding a small plastic bag. She stopped for a second, looked down the alley toward the dumpster again, all of 30 feet away, then looked toward my fence, and just tossed the bag right over it. Smooth little flick of the wrist. No hesitation, no shame. Like she was dropping mail in a slot. Then she turned around and walked back inside. I remember standing there with my coffee halfway to my mouth thinking, hold on, did she really just do that? So I walked over and knocked on her door. I kept it polite because that's how I was raised and because once neighbor stuff gets ugly, it gets ugly fast. She opened the door and I said, hey, I think a trash bag might have gotten tossed over my fence by mistake. She actually laughed. Not nervous laughter, not embarrassed laughter. Real amused laughter. Then she said, oh, it's just trash. The dumpster's always full anyway. Only it wasn't. I could see the dumpster from where I was standing. It was half empty. Still, I let it go. I told myself maybe she was stressed, maybe she was tired, maybe this was one of those moments that sounds ruder in memory than it did in real time. I threw the bag away and moved on. That was my first mistake, because after that it stopped being random. Every few days something landed in my yard. Juice boxes, snack wrappers, plastic forks, little grocery bags tied in knots. Then dirty diapers started showing up, and that's when the whole thing crossed from annoying into nasty. One afternoon, I stepped outside and found a ripped trash bag scattered across my grass noodle stuck to the fence napkin soaked through bits of leftover food baking in the heat. It looked like my yard had been hit by the world's saddest parade. I knocked on her door again, no answer. Tried later, no answer. I even dropped a casual message in the neighborhood HOA group chat asking if anybody else had noticed trash getting blown around in the alley. Nothing. Total silence. Which, if you've ever lived around people who hate conflict, you know exactly what that means. Everybody notices. Nobody wants to be the one saying it out loud. So I bought a cheap motion camera and pointed it at the fence. Honestly, I expected raccoons, maybe a stray cat. Instead, the first clip that came through showed Lena stepping outside, looking left, looking right, then tossing a takeout bag over my fence like she'd done it 100 times. Calm as a Sunday afternoon. That was the moment the whole thing changed for me. Because now I knew this wasn't laziness in the occasional sense, it was a system. She had decided my yard was easier than the dumpster. My fence had become her shortcut. The next time it happened, I didn't knock. I didn't text. I didn't argue. I picked up every single piece of trash in my yard, stacked it neatly, and set it on her front porch. Not dumped. Not scattered. Nicely arranged like a little art installation called Please Knock It Off. I thought the message was pretty clear. Next morning, every bit of it was back in my yard. Yeah. She had actually taken the time to carry it from her porch walk around and throw it back over my fence. That was the exact moment something in me went still. I wasn't furious anymore. I wasn't even surprised. I just thought, all right, now we're done pretending this is a misunderstanding. So I started documenting everything. Photos, video clips, timestamps, notes in my phone, what time it happened, what got thrown where it landed. I turned into the most boring detective in America. Day 17, day 18, day 19. Bag over fence, wrapper over fence, small trash bundle over fence. It got so routine I could almost guess the time. Then one night I sat down and actually read the HOA bylaws, which is not how any sane man wants to spend an evening, but there I was. Buried in all that dry language was exactly what I needed. Improper waste disposal, misuse of shared facilities fines tied to each documented violation. $100 per incident if there was proof. No warning needed if the evidence was clear. I remember leaning back in my chair and thinking, well, Lena, you picked a weird hobby. So I sent in the clips. Calm email. No drama, no big speech. Just dates, footage, and a short note saying this had been happening repeatedly and I wanted it on record. About a week later, I got home from work and saw one of those white management envelopes wedged in Lena's door. That evening, she came pounding on mine, holding the letter like it had bitten her. The second I opened the door, she said, "Did you report me?" No hello, no small talk, just straight to the accusation. And what got me wasn't even the anger. It was the entitlement. Like I had violated some sacred code by objecting to garbage in my own yard. So I told her the truth. I said I submitted video of you throwing trash over my fence. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic, said I could have just talked to her. I actually laughed at that. Couldn't help it. I told her I did talk to you. The first time. You laughed. For a second, she just stared at me. Then she muttered something about ridiculous neighbors and stormed off. 2 days later, another bag came over the fence. That's when I understood something ugly about people. Once somebody gets used to crossing a line without consequence, they stop seeing it as crossing a line at all. In their mind, it becomes normal, convenient, even justified. And when you finally push back, somehow you're the villain for interrupting the pattern. So I uploaded that clip too. Then another. Then another. By the end of the month, I had 8 separate violations logged, $800 in fines. Most people would have stopped right there. Lena apparently decided the answer was to get more creative. The bags got smaller, like maybe tiny trash was somehow morally better trash. Juice pouches, snack wrappers, fast food napkins, little tied grocery bags, same act, smaller package. The camera didn't care. The fines kept stacking. And then came the moment that changed the whole tone of the thing. One afternoon, she tossed a bag that must have had leftover food in it. Halfway over the fence, the plastic split. Rotten food burst across my yard, rice sauce, old scraps, wet paper, the works. Within minutes, the flies showed up. You could smell it before you even got to the grass. Now, normally I would have cleaned it right away because I like my place clean. But this time I stood there, took a full video of the mess, got close shots of the food, the swarm, the whole disgusting scene, and I filed it not just as dumping but as a sanitation issue. And here's the twist, I didn't expect the city got involved. A couple days later, one of the older women in the complex, Mrs. Calder, caught me by the mailboxes and said, quiet as anything, "You did the right thing." That surprised me because she was the kind of neighbor who usually stayed out of everybody's business. Then she told me she'd seen Lena dumping near the alley before too, and apparently when my report flagged food waste and pests, the city sent someone out. Next thing I knew, there was an inspection notice on Lena's door. I never found out the exact amount of that citation, but judging by her face after that, it hurt. And for 3 beautiful weeks, the alley went quiet. No trash, no side-eye, no pounding on my door. My yard stayed clean. I thought maybe that was the end of it. Maybe real consequences had finally done what basic decency couldn't. Then summer hit, school let out, the kids were home more, and one afternoon I heard that familiar little thump against the fence. Not a big bag this time, just a juice pouch. Next day, a wrapper, then another. I swear some people could lose a fist fight to a brick wall and still decide the wall had started it. So I kept reporting. 18, 19, 20. The numbers climbed. By then, the fines and the city citation had pushed the total past $3,000. $3,000. Over a 30-foot walk. That was the part that kept blowing my mind. 30 feet. That's it. 10 seconds, maybe 12. She could have walked to the dumpster, dropped the bag, and been done. Instead, she turned it into this long, stupid war because somewhere in her head my property had become her convenience. So I added one more layer. I bought a motion-activated sprinkler, one of those things people use to keep raccoons out of gardens, and I set it near the fence line where the trash usually landed. Nothing extreme, just water. Petty legal water. The next time she tried it, the bag came over the fence, hit the ground, the sensor caught the movement, and that sprinkler exploded to life. Water sprayed the grass, the fence, the bag. And Lena, who had stepped just a little too close to watch, got blasted too. Not drenched like in a cartoon, but enough to make her jump back with both arms up and let out this sharp, angry yelp. I'm not proud of how hard I laughed. Actually, no, that's not true. I was a little proud. That clip went into the portal too. After that, she started trying late at night. Midnight. 1 in the morning. Didn't matter. The camera caught everything. The board finally escalated it to a lien warning unpaid fines could attach to the property. And apparently that was the moment the math finally beat the attitude. Because about a week later, I came home and saw Lena hauling 2 big rolling trash bins out of her garage. She walked them down the alley all the way to the dumpster, same as everybody else. No shortcut, no little toss, no garbage in my yard. I stood there by my fence and watched her do that 30-foot walk like it was some grand pilgrimage she had only just discovered. And you know what? She's been doing it ever since. It's been 9 months now. Not one rapper has crossed that fence. The alley is quiet again. My grass is clean. The dumpsters are still sitting in the exact same place they were the whole time, which is funny if you think about it. Nothing changed except the price of ignoring the rules got too high. That whole mess taught me something I wish I'd learned younger. A lot of people don't respect a boundary just because it's fair. They respect it when crossing it starts to cost them. That's a bitter thing to admit, but there it is. I wanted a conversation to fix it. I wanted basic courtesy to be enough. It wasn't. In the end, it wasn't my anger that stopped her. It was paperwork, video, and arithmetic. Not exactly dramatic, but weirdly satisfying. And honestly, maybe that's the real lesson. You don't always win by yelling louder. Sometimes you win by staying calm long enough to let somebody bury themselves in their own choices. Sometimes karma doesn't show up wearing thunder and lightning. Sometimes it shows up as a white envelope, a city notice, and a sprinkler hitting at just the right angle. So the last image I've got of that whole saga is this late afternoon sun dropping low behind the row of townhouses, the alley quiet, and Lena dragging her trash bins all the way down to the dumpster while I stood in my clean little yard listening to the wheels rattle over the pavement thinking, there it is, 30 feet. Took her $3,000 to find it. Tell me honestly, if you were standing in your kitchen and watched your neighbor toss trash into your yard like it was their personal dumpster, how long would you have waited before pushing back? And would you have handled it the calm way I did? Or would you have gone nuclear a whole lot sooner? Share what you think was right, what was too much, and whether you've ever dealt with somebody who only learned respect when consequences finally showed up.